In May last year, I did a comparison of the various GTE and GT3 cars that had been recently added to Forza Horizon 5. This being one of them, the Ford GT-LM. A GTE car that was very popular for the few years that it was running in the World Endurance Championship and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Two series that in the past couple of years I've been actually following a bit more, thanks to the hypercar regulations. And of course, GT cars are a very important part of those championships. At least they are at the moment. They weren't always. I think back in the 80s there were a few Le Mans, 24 Hours of Le Mans runnings where there were no GT cars, but that's by the by. It was a unique opportunity for me at the time, because having these cars added to Horizon 5 gave me this opportunity to compare the various cars, and I did so. But it wasn't really a true comparison. Like, the various cars were, sure, balanced to roughly the same degree. I think running around the Horizon Mexico circuit, the GTE cars tended to be about 2 seconds faster than the GT3 cars. I didn't have Forza Motorsport 8 at the time, and whilst I do have Motorsport 8, I don't really enjoy playing it, if I'm being honest. I mean, I do play it, I unlock some of the stuff in it, but yeah, I did do that hypercar and GT car comparison videos between Forza Motorsport 8, Le Mans Ultimate, and Ultimate Blister 2. And we're going back to Le Mans Ultimate today to do a more direct comparison between the GTE and GT3 cars, because in 2023 they were running GTE, and in 2024 they began running GT3, as GTE was replaced because it was too expensive to run or something. Essentially, to my knowledge, Le Mans Ultimate is, to my knowledge, the only game where you can directly compare every available GTE car in the game to its GT3 counterpart. Sort of. It's not quite that simple, but it's what we've got. And so, we start off with our GTE cars, the Aston Martin Vantage AMR GTE, Ferrari 488 GTE Evo, the Porsche 911 991.2 RSR 19 GTE, and the knockoff Ferrari 458 thingamajig. And now their GT3 counterparts, the Aston Martin Vantage AMR LM GT3, the Ferrari 296 LM GT3, the Porsche 911 GT3R 992, and I swear this thing is just morally and intellectually bankrupt, like it's literally just copied from a Ferrari 458. So, much like the previous test on Forza Horizon 5, I decided to take these cars around a lap of a circuit in Le Mans Ultimate, and in this case I chose Sebring, a track with a variety of different corner types and long straights that I felt would be a reasonably good track to use to compare the vehicles. Now, there are various differences between the two classes. GTE uses Michelin tyres, and they come in 3 compounds: soft, medium and hard, whilst the GT3 cars get Goodyear rubber, and it's only medium compound, or at least what the game calls medium. Of course, there would also be some other differences between the different cars. GTE relies entirely on a fuel tank, whilst GT3 has a virtual energy bar for some reason, because the cars are that different from each other? I don't know. And of course, GT3 cars are meant to be slightly slower than GTE in the first place, so if we're going faster than GTE, or at least matching them, it would be rather surprising, I suppose, but we're going to see. That's what we're here to find out, aren't we? For each lap, I gave each car 3.5 laps worth of fuel, except for the Vantage GTE. I gave that 3.1 by mistake, and I nearly ran out of fuel before the end of the lap. I don't think it made much of a difference though. I also ran the GTE cars on their soft compound tyres, though I did do a test run later on medium tyres to see if that would make any difference if they had made the two classes a bit more comparable in speed. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words a bit, even with the assistance of splitting the narrations. Anyway, let's move on to our first challenger, the Vantage GTE.
That time was a 2:03.33.
Now, I forgot to record the lap time that the Vantage GTE managed, so I had to skip through the video file that I have, and this is the best time I could find, 2:03.282 for the Vantage GTE. Next up, the Ferrari 488 GTE.
Lap 2:08.30.
Okay, so I don't know if this is due to balance of performance or whatever, but somehow, despite feeling like the car was going to spin out on me any second, I managed to go about 8 tenths faster in the 488 GTE than I did in the Vantage. I don't know. The Vantage never really struck me as a great car in GTE, especially with that flat plane engine. Next up, the Porsche 911 RSR.
208.05.
I fully admit this was a fairly scruffy lap. 203.033, not quite as fast as I managed in the Ferrari, but faster at least than the Vantage. Definitely could have been faster, but I do have a certain skill ceiling. I'm not particularly great, and of course I'm playing on a controller rather than a wheel, which is probably how you're meant to play the game, with a wheel, but oh well. Next up, the Chevrolet Corvette C8R, if there was such a thing, because this thing clearly isn't a Corvette C8R, because seriously, just look at it and listen to it. Does that sound like a Corvette? No.
Lap 207.26.
202.433, just a few hundredths faster than the Ferrari 488. How is the fake Ferrari faster than the real Ferrari? Well, it's not that much faster, it's only a matter of hundredths, milliseconds, so I imagine it's just if I had a cleaner lap in the 488 in the real Ferrari, then it would put this fake Ferrari to shame, without a bloody doubt. So that's all the GTE cars out of the way. Now it's time to look at their GT3 counterparts, starting off with, as we did before, the Aston Martin LMGT3.
920.7.34.
So, the Vantage GT3's time, 205.933. Almost 2.5 seconds slower than the GTE car. Now, it wasn't a particularly clean lap, it was rather scruffy. It felt like the car was on a knife's edge the entire drive. So I chalked this up to just me not really gelling with the car. It just didn't feel nice to drive. What did feel nice to drive was the next car, the Ferrari 296 GT3.
911.11.
205.5 exactly. Yeah, that started to indicate a trend. The 296 felt very nice to drive. It really did. But it just clearly isn't as fast as its GTE counterpart, which is understandable. GTE is closer to GT2 regulations than GT3 is. So next, we have the Porsche 911 GT3R.
Lap 2, 10.78.
This car feels so nice to drive. And I like the gear ratio too. You can actually reach 6th gear on the straights here, unlike some of the other GT3s. 205.118. The best time so far from any of the GT3 cars. It's looking pretty clear that if I could hook up the perfect lap in a GTE, I could get into the high 2 minute 1 seconds. Whilst if I got a good lap with the GT3s, I could just about edge into the 204s. Next up, the final GT3 challenger, and I'm going to go to hell for saying this, the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R. Fake Ferrari number 231,000, I guess.
Lap 2, 10.15.
Once again, the fake Ferrari has somehow managed to go slightly faster than the real one. It's really irritating. 205,417. How about 205,417 years? Because that's how fast it deserves to go. Because everyone hates this thing, and if you unironically like this thing, you are morally bankrupt. The irritating thing is, it actually feels nice to drive, which I hate that it feels nice to drive. It should feel awful to drive because, you know, it's a fake Ferrari, which is meant to be crap, and yet somehow it feels nice to drive and manages to go faster than the real Ferrari. Fuck off, honestly. So that's the comparison over, and it has more or less confirmed what everyone knew. The GT3 cars are slower than the GTE cars by a not insignificant margin. About 2 to 3 seconds slower on average compared to their GTE counterparts. Now, if I could get in a really amazing lap, maybe I could match the GTEs. And then I remembered that the GTE cars have different tyre compounds. The GT3s are disadvantaged because they only have medium tyres. So I decided I'm going to run a test with a GTE car on its own medium tyres. So I took a 911 RSR and threw it around Sebring on medium tyres, and this is the time I got.
That time was a 2:03.32.
.204. Slightly faster than the Vantage GTE, slightly slower than the RSR 19 on soft tyres. Maybe I should have used hard tyres instead. Yeah, I think maybe even if I was using hard tyres, the GTE cars are still faster than the GT3s. Oh well. How about we finish off this video with every single lap, except for the RSR on mediums, from the off-board external cameras, and enjoy the sounds of these cars. Well, enjoy the cars that sound good, sort of go meh at the Vantage GTE, and get earplugs and prepare to tear out your ears as you listen to the awful dying cat playing broken bagpipes That is the so-called LT6 engine in the so-called Corvettes. See ya. Bye.